Have you ever wondered how your favorite toy lights up, or how a remote control can change the channel on your television from across the room? The answer is often a small, powerful object called a battery. Think of a battery as a tiny, self-contained power plant. It stores chemical energy, which is the energy held inside different substances, and can turn that chemical energy into electrical energy whenever we need it. This electricity is what makes so many of our gadgets work, from clocks on the wall to handheld video games. It's like having a little bit of lightning stored in a can, ready to be used. Before batteries became common, getting electricity was a much bigger deal. You needed large, complicated machines called generators, or you had to be connected to a power grid with long wires. Batteries changed all of that by making electricity portable. Suddenly, power wasn't something that was stuck in one place. You could carry it with you. This simple idea opened up a whole new world of possibilities, allowing people to create inventions that could work anywhere, anytime. The journey to the powerful batteries we use in our phones and laptops today started a long, long time ago with some very clever science. One of the most important early steps in this journey was the invention of a special kind of battery called the LaClanche Cell. While it might sound like a fancy dessert, it was actually a groundbreaking piece of technology that made using electricity in everyday life much easier and more practical. It was one of the very first batteries that was reliable, inexpensive to make, and didn't require a lot of maintenance. Think of it as the great-great-grandfather of the common batteries you might find in your kitchen drawer. It set the stage for a battery revolution that would eventually power our modern world. Understanding these early batteries is super important because it helps us appreciate the science we use every single day. Every time you pick up a device that runs on batteries, you are holding a piece of history and science that started with inventors figuring out how to mix a few simple chemicals together to create an electrical current. It's all about chemistry in action. So, let's dive into the story of one of the most influential batteries ever created and see how a simple design made a massive impact on the world. Consider this: science is all around us. The amazing battery that changed so much was invented by a French scientist and engineer named Georges LaClanche. He was born a long time ago, in 1839, and he was incredibly curious about electricity and chemistry. In his time, batteries were often messy, using liquid acids that could spill easily and were not very practical for home use. They were more suited for a science laboratory than for a living room. Georges LaClanche knew there had to be a better way to create a battery that was safer, stronger, and more convenient for everyone to use in their daily lives. So, in the year 1866, Georges LaClanche revealed his new invention to the world, the LaClanche Cell. His design was brilliant because it was so much more user-friendly than what came before it. Instead of using a container full of sloshing acid, his cell used a paste-like substance. This made it a wet cell, but it was much less likely to spill and cause problems. This simple but clever improvement meant that his battery could be moved around and used for things like powering a doorbell or sending a telegraph message without creating a dangerous mess. It was a huge leap forward in battery technology. What made the LaClanche Cell so revolutionary? It was its clever combination of being both affordable and dependable. Previous batteries were either too expensive for the average person, or they would stop working very quickly. LaClanche's cell, however, could last for a long time and was made from materials that were relatively easy to get. This meant that for the first time, reliable electrical power was accessible to more than just scientists and large companies. It was a battery for the people, and it helped bring electricity into homes and small businesses in a completely new way. Sadly, Georges LaClanche passed away at the young age of 42, so he didn't get to see the full, incredible impact his invention would have on the world. But his work lived on and became the foundation for the next big step in battery evolution, the dry cell. The common zinc-carbon batteries that powered flashlights and radios for most of the 20th century were direct descendants of his original design. Georges LaClanche may not be a household name today, but his scientific contribution truly lit up the world. So, what exactly was inside a LaClanche cell that made it work so well? Let's take a look at its main components. It's like looking at the ingredients in a recipe for electricity. The cell had 4 key parts, each with a very specific job to do. First, there was the negative electrode, also called the anode. In the LaClanche cell, this was a rod made of the metal zinc. Zinc is a special metal that is very willing to give away tiny particles called electrons, and the flow of electrons is what we call electricity. Think of the zinc rod as the starting line for the electrical race. The second important part was the positive electrode, known as the cathode. This was a rod made of carbon, which is the same stuff you find in the middle of a pencil. The carbon rod was placed in the center of the cell and acted as a collector for all those electrons that the zinc rod was releasing. To help it do its job even better, the carbon rod was surrounded by a powder of a dark, earthy substance called manganese dioxide. This powder had a very important job. It helped prevent a buildup of gas bubbles on the carbon rod, a process we call depolarization. Without it, the battery would stop working very quickly. Now, how did the electrons get from the zinc rod to the carbon rod? They traveled through the third key part, the electrolyte. The electrolyte is a substance that can conduct electricity. In the original LaClanche cell, the electrolyte was a solution of ammonium chloride mixed with water. This solution filled the container and surrounded the zinc rod. The chemical reaction between the zinc and the ammonium chloride is what released the electrons and started the whole process. Think of the electrolyte as the swimming pool that the electrons have to move through to get from one side to the other. Finally, all these parts were put together inside a container, which was often a simple glass jar. The zinc rod, or anode, would be on one side, and the carbon rod, or cathode, surrounded by its manganese dioxide powder, would be in a porous pot in the middle, all sitting in the ammonium chloride electrolyte. When you connected a wire from the zinc rod to the carbon rod, you created a complete circuit, and the electrons would start to flow, creating an electrical current that could power a device. It was a simple yet incredibly effective chemical factory for making electricity on demand. The LaClanche Cell wasn't just a cool science experiment. It completely changed how people lived and worked. Because it was so reliable and long-lasting, it became the perfect power source for the growing telecommunications industry. The telegraph, which was the 19th century version of sending a text message, needed a steady supply of electricity to send signals over long distances. LaClanche cells were ideal for this, and they were installed in telegraph offices all around the world, helping people communicate faster and more efficiently than ever before. It helped connect the world in a way that was previously unimaginable. The cell also found its way into homes, bringing with it new kinds of convenience and safety. One of its most popular uses was for powering electric doorbells. Before this, you had to use a mechanical knocker or pull bell to announce your arrival. With a LaClanche cell hidden away in a closet, a simple push of a button could create an electrical circuit that rang a bell. This might seem simple to us today, but at the time, it was like magic. It was one of the first pieces of automated electrical technology that became a common feature in many households. As the design was improved and made even more portable, it led to the invention of the first handheld flashlights around the year 1899. Early flashlights were basically a tube with a few small LaClanche-type cells, a light bulb, and a switch. They were called flashlights because the early batteries weren't strong enough to provide a long, steady beam of light. You could only get short flashes of light from them. Even so, they gave people a safe, portable source of light that didn't rely on a dangerous open flame like a candle or a kerosene lamp. Learning about the LaClanche cell is important because it shows us how one good idea in science can lead to so many others. Its design principles paved the way for the dry cell battery, which powered countless radios, toys, and gadgets for decades. It reminds us that the high-tech world we live in today is built upon layers of simpler, but no less brilliant inventions from the past. Every time we use a battery, we're tapping into a stream of innovation that Georges LaClanche helped to start over 150 years ago. Now that's what I call powerful science.